Good morning, crew. The video that you see now is what happens when you're shooting. You accidentally put the video camera in slow motion mode, and it doesn't record any audio and records everything at 1/3 of actual speed. And I gave you a really lovely introduction here, and then I sped it back up. Actually, I guess maybe it's 1/5 of actual speed. I don't know. Anyway, I've sped it up a little bit here. No audio, but I was giving you an introduction about what Sarah and I were doing today and what this video was going to be about. And now you don't get to hear that, but you get to see it because I thought proof that we actually shot it is really important. And so there you go. So there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about in today's video. I'm going to let the video sort of unfold for you. I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but there's stuff I do want to tell you about that's going on here. The first thing, and I don't know if I actually talked to you about this, is our electrical bill. I know I've talked to you about how the billing for electricity works here. There's a central provider, and then there's a market of essentially brokers who you can buy your electricity from, and they're all buying from the same source and reselling it to you. But theoretically, I mean, they have different fee structures, all of them. So the one we had last year charged us a bundle, and we had trouble getting anyone to sell us electricity because we were not UK citizens, and they were worried we were not going to pay our bills and skip out. But eventually we found someone, and we paid an uncomfortably high rate for the electricity. But after a year of doing that, we were able to switch to a different provider. However, when we went to switch, they wanted to install a smart meter so they could do readings from a distance. And we were happy to have that happen, but they only had one day when they could come and install it. And we couldn't do it that day. We had guests visiting, we were out doing things, and so we didn't get it installed. But when we switched providers, we sent in a reading both to our previous provider and our new provider. And I actually took pictures of the meter to show them what the meter said, and we sent it in to both of them. And when we wrapped up our previous provider, they refunded they made us pay, I don't know what you call it, it's like a down payment just in case we skip out, or what do you call it, a deposit. They refunded our deposit after some extra hoops we had to jump through, which was like 600 pounds. And then we started getting bills, and we did the transfer like just a few days before we left in the spring. And so we started getting these bills, and they're estimating how much we're using. And so we get here back in the fall, and I go to take a reading and submit it to them. And when I submit the reading, in their online portal, it rejects it, and it says, there's something wrong with your reading. Can you confirm it? And so I went back and confirmed it and sent it in again, and then I get an email almost immediately saying, the reading you submitted is lower than the initial reading we had when we took over providing service to you. And I go back and I look at I have the email trail that I sent them these emails with readings, and it's not lower than those readings. But when I look in their system, they have the readings that they got from the previous provider, and they just took the previous provider's estimated readings and just ran with those. And I never double checked that they had actually used the readings I sent them, and that they emailed me acknowledging getting those readings. So I start looking at the readings I sent in, and so I have the readings from when they first took over and the readings from the beginning of October. And I look at what they've been billing us, and they've been billing us for 4 times the amount of electricity that we actually used over that period of time. And so I'm emailing with their customer service people, and eventually the guy says, we're going to have to negotiate with the previous provider because they part of this refund you're going to get is going to have to come from them because they overcharged you. And so then immediately we get a bill for September's, in October for September's energy uses, and they're using the estimated readings, and it's like 270 pounds or something. And I'm like, well, they don't actually know how much we used in that time period, so they can't lower the bill. They're still going to use these estimates. So, I don't complain about that. But then, beginning of November, I send in another reading, and when I go in and look, I notice they haven't logged the new readings I've sent. It still isn't, there's no evidence of it in the system. And there was when I first put it in. And then immediately after that, I get a bill for 377 pounds, which is their estimate of how much electricity I use this month. Well, now I've got a reading from the beginning of the month and the end of the month, so I know how much we used. And once again, I go and look, and they're billing me for 4 times the amount of energy that I actually used. So we had tried to call customer service, and we could never get through. And eventually, I think there was something wrong with Sarah's phone, so we used my phone, called customer service, got through, and I started talking to a lady about this. This was last week. And she said, well, it says here that they were negotiating with the previous provider to figure out how to bill you correctly, and then they're going to reissue you bills. And I said, yeah, but that doesn't excuse you billing me for the month of October when I gave you a reading at the beginning of the month and the end of the month, so you know exactly how much energy I used. And she said, do you want to file a grievance? And I said, yes, I want to file a grievance. And she said, well, what do you want the grievance to say? And so I said, I want it to say, we only want to pay for the amount of energy that we used for the month of October. You have a reading from the beginning of the month and a reading from the end of the month. I only want to pay for that amount of electricity. She says, okay, I filed the grievance. It could take up to 8 weeks to process. And so then we emailed back the guy who was working on the other issue with negotiating. And he emailed us, in fairness, he emailed us back almost immediately and said, it takes up to 6 weeks to resolve this, but it should be quicker. Well, it's already been a month. It's already been 4 weeks plus. It might even been 5 weeks by now. So anyway, and I talked to the neighbors, and they're like, well, if you're a business, if you are a private, just an individual buying electricity, then you can claim that you can't afford to pay and negotiate something, but as a business, you don't have the ability to do that under the law. So I just figure they're just going to have my money until they decide to give it back to me, which is incredibly annoying. Anyway, that's one of the things that's happening. Now that I've gone into that long thing, oh, look what I'm doing. I had a lovely soak this morning, and I don't know if you noticed previously, but there are picture-in-picture there of Sarah shooting the sheep coming down the trail and seeing us and turning around and running away. But yeah. So anyway, that's one thing that's happening. The other thing that's happening is our friend Dada, who Tom and Lynn met and helped us get the scaffolding removed, is helping us. We're getting some bids to have the sauna removed and have the bathrooms and the bedroom on the first floor of the outrigger repaired, just cleaned up and fixed. So he's helping out with that. He stopped by a couple times. Tomorrow he's got a guy coming by. He's going to come in and help us get a bid. And then I think on Saturday there's another guy coming by. So things are moving forward, which is nice. So pretty much that's what's going on. My hip is feeling a little better. When we went on this walk, it was, I think we ended up walking a little over 2 miles, including some significant climbing. I'll talk about that at the end of this in another clip. My hip is feeling better, but not ideal. Actually, it felt really good to get in the water, to be in the water. And so the air temperature when I was doing this soak was probably around 12 degrees. I assume the water temperature was between 5 and 10, somewhere in that range. We've had a lot of rain the last couple days, and actually on the drive up there, it just poured on us. So that would be just on the other side of this hill. So the amount of water coming down is as much as we've seen when we've done this walk in the past. So it's funny because we've walked by this pool, I don't know, at least a dozen times, maybe 24 times. And I've always said, oh, I've got to get in this pool. And I was hoping to get in, but usually it's less, there's a lot less flow, and the pool is kind of clear and feels more inviting than it did today. But I enjoyed it absolutely. It was super nice, and in addition, there was nobody else around because the weather was a little less than ideal there. So I'm going to let this video sort of play out. Sarah and I snuck on up the hill from there. We walked to an overlook that we hadn't gone to before. That was a bit of a climb. It was probably a couple hundred feet elevation gain above this spot. And then had a nice picnic breakfast, as it was, as it were. I don't know. And yeah, so it was a nice morning. I will let this video continue to play out and let you enjoy all the scenes you get to see. Yes, that's where we're going, sheep.
They've gotten past us while they had the chance.
So, Karoo, it is about 2.5 hours after I shot that first video of us getting ready to go up and do the cold soak. I didn't actually tell you we were at the walk to Dinas Emrys, near Beth Gellert in Arari, or Snowdonia. And yeah, it ended up being a great little walk. We walked up from, after doing the cold soak and interacting with the sheep, we walked up the hill to a lookout that we've never been to before, and there's a loop up there, and we considered doing the whole loop, but my hip is hurting just enough that I thought I didn't want to overdo it. But as you can tell, it's a gorgeous day back here in Carnarvon, so I guess you get what you get. You make the best of it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.